Here's a powerful, high-center story based on your title, perfect for a 15-minute emotional YouTube video. Plain paragraphs, strong hook, smooth pacing, emotional payoff. They laughed at him before they even learned his name. The new nurse stood in the hospital corridor wearing simple blue scrubs, a lunchbox in one hand and exhaustion in his eyes. Daniel Carter was 34, a single dad to a 6-year-old daughter, and it was his first day at Westbrook Memorial. Whispers followed him like a shadow. Male nurse. One orderly muttered. Probably couldn't handle med school, another joked. And he's a single dad. Good luck with that, someone added. Daniel heard every word. He just smiled politely and kept walking. He had learned long ago that silence is stronger than ego. 3 years earlier, Daniel had buried his wife after a sudden illness. Since then, his entire world revolved around two things: his daughter Lily, and helping people survive. Nursing wasn't a fallback plan. It was purpose. But hospitals can be cruel places, not just because of illness, but because of pride. The senior staff didn't trust him with critical cases. They assigned him paperwork, routine vitals, basic shifts no one else wanted. The ER team treated him like an intern. Still, Daniel worked harder than anyone. He stayed late. He studied charts at home. He memorized trauma protocols after putting Lily to bed. When she asked why he worked so much, he would kiss her forehead and whisper, "Because someone's dad needs help too." Weeks passed. The mockery didn't stop. Then one morning, everything changed. It began with a distant thunder. At first, people thought it was a storm. But the sound grew louder, sharper, unmistakable. A helicopter. Staff rushed toward the rooftop helipad. The noise shook the windows. Dust and debris spiraled through the air as a Navy helicopter descended onto the hospital roof. Not a medical chopper. Military. Armed personnel jumped out first, tactical gear, focused faces. Then came the stretcher. A man in combat uniform. Blood soaking through layers of field dressings. Oxygen mask barely fogging. One of the officers shouted over the roar, "We need Daniel Carter." Now, the entire rooftop froze. Daniel had just stepped out of the supply room when the director grabbed his arm. "They're asking for you." The laughter from weeks ago seemed to echo in the hallway. Why would the Navy be asking for him? Someone whispered. Daniel didn't answer. His expression changed. Calm, controlled, sharp. He ran. Inside the trauma bay, the tension was electric. The wounded soldier was barely responsive. Multiple penetrating injuries. Internal bleeding suspected. Collapsed lung. The lead officer leaned close to Daniel. "That's Chief Ryan Hayes, Navy SEAL." He said one name before losing consciousness. "Yours." Gasps filled the room. Daniel's voice shifted. No hesitation. "Prep for emergency thoracostomy. Get me O negative. Clear the bay. Now." The same doctors who once mocked him now followed orders without question. Hands moved fast. Machines beeped urgently. Blood pooled. Seconds mattered. Daniel's movements were precise. Controlled. Experienced. Because before he became just a nurse, Daniel Carter had been something else. He had been a Navy SEAL combat medic. 8 tours overseas. Dozens of lives saved under fire. Ryan Hayes had been one of his brothers in battle. Years ago, Daniel had carried him out of an explosion zone. Today, history reversed. The surgery was brutal. 2 hours of relentless focus. At one point, Ryan flatlined. Clear. Shock. Nothing. Again. Shock. A heartbeat returned. The room exhaled. When it was over, Daniel removed his gloves slowly. His hands were steady, but his eyes were wet. Ryan was alive. Word spread through the hospital like wildfire. The quiet single dad they mocked was a decorated combat medic. A man who had saved soldiers in war zones. A man who chose nursing not because he failed, but because he'd seen enough death to dedicate his life to fighting it. The hospital director approached him later that evening. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" she asked softly. Daniel shrugged. "It wasn't relevant. Patients don't need my past. They need my focus." Outside, Lily waited on a bench with her backpack. She ran into his arms when she saw him. "Did you save someone today, Daddy?" He smiled, holding her tight. "Yes, sweetheart, I did." The next morning was different. No whispers. No smirks. Just respect. Doctors asked for his opinion. Nurses thanked him for guidance. Even the ones who laughed avoided his eyes, ashamed. But Daniel treated them the same as always. Kind. Professional. Calm. Because true strength doesn't demand applause. A week later, Ryan Hayes woke up in ICU. Weak but alive. When Daniel walked into the room, Ryan's eyes filled with gratitude. "You always show up," Ryan whispered. Daniel smiled. "That's what brothers do." The Navy later sent a formal commendation to the hospital, recognizing Daniel's service and life-saving intervention. But the real reward came at home. That night, Lily drew a picture. A helicopter, a hospital, and her dad wearing blue scrubs with a tiny cape behind him. Underneath she wrote in crooked letters, "My daddy saves heroes." And that was enough. Message: never underestimate someone because of their title. The quiet ones often carry the loudest courage. True heroes don't announce themselves, they show up when it matters most. If you'd like, I can now generate 10 hyper-realistic image prompts with consistent ages and looks. Or a 150-word SEO package with keywords, hashtags and tags. Or a high-center YouTube description and thumbnail text. Just tell me which one you need next.